Hello everyone, I'm Ankit and you're watching StudyIQ IAS English. In our today's video, we are going to find out about the largest ever foreign direct investment in India that has been made recently by the company we already know called as Google. So let us find out why is this foreign investment first of all significant in India? What or in what field this foreign investment is going to be and how it will create positive impact on Indian economy. That is the subject of our today's discussion. Now the notes that I will be using in this session, in case if you want to download them, you can go to this particular Telegram channel called as ATS Live. In this channel, you'll be able to find the notes and download them. And while you're at it, please do not forget to subscribe to the channel also. Let us start by understanding what is the context of our today's discussion. Now, the context, which I've already told you, is about the largest ever foreign direct investment in one chunk ever made in India, and this has been made by Google, which has announced that it is going to invest as many as $15 billion in the next 5-year period to establish a data center specifically meant for artificial intelligence or for AI purposes. And as I told you, it is the largest investment made in India in one single chunk up till today. Now, this investment obviously comes with certain conditions. This investment is going to be made in India, but who is going to construct the data center where this Google will operate from? It is going to be made by a private company called as AdaniConneX. Similarly, the internet that will be provided to this data center will be provided by another Indian company, Airtel, which will be responsible for connectivity. Now, you need to understand, to establish and to function a AI-based data center, you need very high-speed data. So that is why it is also going to include an altogether new international subsea cable network, which will provide internet specifically to this particular data center. And this development is quite significant. First of all, this development comes in a time when India's and United States relations, particularly the relationship between economy reasons, is not so well off. Similarly, it also comes at a time when Government of India is looking to increase self-reliance in all the fields, including self-reliance with respect to creation of AI and digital infrastructure. So that is why this investment becomes quite significant. Now, before we are going to understand what this investment includes, what are its significance, what might be the challenges, it is essential for us to first of all get our basics cleared. So we are going to understand what exactly is a foreign direct investment and how is it different from other kind of investment like investment in debt receipts. Okay, so first let us understand what is a foreign direct investment. Any investment made by a non-resident company, which is Google here, if it is made in capital instruments like shares, convertible debentures, preference shares, these are called as foreign direct investment. Now, generally there are two types of instrument. First is a debt instrument. Another one is a capital instrument. So any investment made in a debt instrument automatically is not an FDI. Similarly, whenever any investment is made in capital instruments, these are called as foreign direct investment. Now, what makes any investment a foreign direct investment? Let us understand the few conditions behind it. First is that this investment needs to be in an unlisted company. So even if any foreign entity is investing 100 rupees in an unlisted company, that would technically mean it is a foreign direct investment. But when any company is listed in any stock markets in India, there are certain more conditions. This investment by a non-resident entity in any listed company needs to be more than 10% of the total shares of that company. Then only it will be called as a foreign direct investment. If it is less than 10%, then that investment is called as foreign institutional investment. So investment of 10% of more of paid up equity capital in any listed company would make it as a foreign direct investment. So again, I told you, any investment, be it 100 rupees investment in an unlisted company, would make it a foreign direct investment, whereas in a listed company needs to be more than 10% of the total equity or the total shares of that company. Understood? So in all, what is the nature of foreign direct investment? It is a long-term investment, it is a non-debt creating investment, and it is made specifically in capital instruments, not debt instruments. So suppose if a company issues bonds, if someone invests or non-resident investor invests in those bonds, that is a debt instrument, so it won't be an FDI. It has to be in capital instruments. Now, there are many kind of financial instruments that can be at one time a debt instrument and at the other time it can be capital instrument. So theoretically, all those hybrid instruments which have a potential to be converted into an equity, that investment can be a foreign direct investment. So how many of you have heard about foreign currency convertible bonds? Now, these convertible bonds essentially means that originally it is a debt instrument, but eventually it can be converted into a capital instrument. So investment in them makes an investment in FDI. Similarly, if a foreign institutional investment, if it is less than 10%, it is called as FII. But eventually, when the investment of that company goes beyond 10%, it gets converted into an FDI. So conditional FII investment, if it becomes more than 10% of total paid up capital, that makes it a foreign direct investment. Similarly, global depository receipts, American depository receipts, which are issued by Indian companies in foreign capital markets, those are also have the ability to get converted into shares of Indian companies. So again, this is what makes it an FDI. Now we have understood what kind of financial instruments, if you invest in them, would make it FDI. So it is also essential for us to understand in which kind of financial instruments investment would not be called as FDI. This includes non-resident external deposits. Now suppose how many of you know an NRI? If they open a bank account in India and in that bank account they make a fixed deposit, that is called as non-resident external deposits. Now this is not a FDI instrument because this is categorized into external commercial borrowings of an Indian economy. So it is a part of capital account of BOP. But is it an FDI? The answer is no. It is not called as FDI. So now we have understood what is FDI. It is a non-debt creating investment. It is an investment in Indian unlisted company, any amount. If it is in a listed company, it has to be more than 10%. And what are kind of instruments that are covered in FDI, not covered in FDI? We have already discussed it. So now let us move into our today's discussion, that is the single largest ever foreign direct investment made in India. Now, in this regard, let us understand what is India's data center landscape. Now, in general, because of the increased digital era, we are seeing data centers are in high demand. Data centers are kind of a centers which has a high storage of data which is used for internet or digital related purposes. Now, the current market size is about $10 billion and it is going to increase every year from now on. Similarly, the projected capacity of India's data center, it is going to increase to 1.8 gigawatt from 1 gigawatt currently in next 2 years. Similarly, there are major hubs where data centers are established. These are major cities like Mumbai, Chennai, Hyderabad, Pune, Noida. And now we have seen that this will be established in Visakhapatnam, that is a beautiful city, coastal city located in Andhra Pradesh. So this is another instant where Google is going to invest, and this is going to be invested in a tier 2 city, not one of the major metro cities in India. So this is another big example. Now, one thing I told you in the context that Google is going to invest in a data center meant for AI. So how is a data center meant for AI different than traditional data centers? That we also need to understand. First of all, the major kind of computation that is used in traditional data centers, these are based via computer processing units or central processing units. Whereas data centers meant for AI, they generally require higher computation power. So here, graphics processing unit, tensor processing units are used instead of CPU based processing units. Similarly, the application of data centers for AI and for traditional related purposes are very different. Traditional data centers are utilizing it for web hosting purposes, cloud storage purposes, whereas for AI related work, you need AI model training, you need video and image generation, you need generative AI like ChatGPT, like Gemini, right? So these require higher processing power, and that is why we require processors which have higher ability to process, therefore graphics and tensor processing units. Now, another difference in terms of power and cooling. Now, I told you traditional data centers in comparison to the AI data centers require somewhat lesser power. So the power requirement, the cooling requirement is moderate. Whereas in the AI related data centers, the power and cooling related work is extremely high. Therefore, you need advanced cooling systems. You require much more power than in the traditional data centers. Similarly, Latency is a very important determinant in the data centers. Latency is basically the time it takes for a signal to move from one system and back to it, right? So this is what is called as latency. So latency is a very big determinant factor when it comes to AI processing. Now, AI is going to be used in many related purposes in our day-to-day lives. So you need less latency. That is the time it takes for a signal to go from your device to data center and then come back from data center to your device needs to be less in terms of AI related data center. So therefore, AI is meant for low latency applications, whereas the latency requirement is not very sensitive in case of traditional data centers. So these are the major differences between AI and traditional data centers. Now let us talk about what is the benefit of this single largest investment for India. There are many benefits. First is the proximity and performance. I told you going forward, we are going to use AI in our day-to-day lives. So you need the latency requirement to be as low as possible for AI related work. Therefore, if you establish a data center in India, it reduces the physical distance that your devices located in India need to travel. And therefore, when you establish this kind of a data center in India, it reduces latency and improves the user experience in AI related works. Similarly, it also localizes the AI services which can be catered specifically to Indian requirements, like AI used for Indian languages. Similarly, there's also geopolitical significance. Now, most of the countries, they require or they recognize the geopolitical importance of AI. Similarly, going forward, there's also a case that one country might threaten another in geopolitical negotiations, that if you don't agree to what I say, I will cut off your AI related work, or I'll cut off your supply of data which I provide from my data centers. So location of data centers in your nation's boundary or inside your nation's boundary becomes very important. And this is very important. First of all, it makes you less vulnerable to international sanctions, and it also utilizes that critical data which you are going to supply to AI models. It is going to be stored and located inside your own geography, which would make it applicable, or your laws applicable on these data centers. You don't have to run pillar to post, request other countries for access of the data, right? So this makes India less vulnerable to geopolitical threat or negotiations. Similarly, there is also a very good economic and employment impact. First of all, these data centers, when they are going to be established in India, like for one Google, it has promised direct and indirect jobs of as much as 1.8 lakh people. So it creates jobs in India. Similarly, another problem that India's services sector is facing from AI is loss of employment in our traditional IT companies. So once you establish these data centers in India, it is likely to offset the loss of jobs that we are facing in our traditional IT sector. In addition to that, it also creates positive impact on the overall industrial and startup ecosystem in India. First of all, when you invest in such capacities in India, it is likely to get trickled down to lower companies. So lower companies will get access to data from your data center. Similarly, other competitors, other companies would also like to set up their respective data centers in India, which again would create more jobs, more delivery of services, and competition would ensure that the prices of these services stay low. So these are positive impacts of these kind of data centers on India's economy, on India's geopolitical heft, right? Now let us understand what are the challenges and concerns. First challenge and concern straight away is because of the intensive energy requirement that a data center requires to function. Now, it has been estimated that about 65% of total operational expenses of running a data center is just relating to the electricity cost. Similarly, 40% of the cost which you required for installation of such systems goes into electrical work. So first of all, this is very energy intensive sector. Now, on one hand, this is an energy intensive sector, but many governments, they promise that we are going to supply energy through renewable sources. But you need to understand there is one big problem with renewable energy sources. They are intermittent in nature. They are not available 24/7. So if you have to provide energy to these kind of sectors, particularly to data centers, you can provide it through renewable. But at the time when renewable energy is not applicable or available, you have to establish energy storage, or you have to use nuclear power energy, which adds to the cost. And total cost which you require to invest in data centers amounts for 1 megawatt of data, you require about 60 to 70 crore of investment. Now, if you're making so much investment in a sector, you'd want this sector to pay rich dividends in terms of employment creation. But this data center is an example of service industry. Now we know the kind of jobs that intensive service industry like banking can create, the kind of jobs that manufacturing sector can create. It can create similar amount of jobs in a fraction of cost as compared to these data centers. So I can say that yes, data centers would create high paying jobs, it would create high skilled jobs, but the amount of employment elasticity that you get out of per unit investment is low in these sectors as compared to traditional sectors like manufacturing. And the kind of jobs that will be available will be highly skilled jobs. So people who have less skill won't be able to get their jobs in these kind of data centers. So this is another problem. First is low employment elasticity. Second problem is the kind of jobs that are available will be high to moderate skilled. And you require less skilled jobs also to provide as much as employment as possible in India. In addition to that, there are other burdens also. First is the resource intensive as well as policy burden. Now, many states like Andhra Pradesh, like UP, like Maharashtra, they're competing among themselves so as to get the investment in their state. Now, to offer incentives to the companies, these governments, they promise subsidies on taxes, subsidies on land procurement, subsidies on the power supply. Now, it is good for you to offer subsidies and incentives to company in order to attract the investment, but there is a downside also. This downside is called as fiscal stress. Now, we all know states' finances are already stressed, and if states are going to offer more financial incentives, it will add to their financial burden and it would increase or exacerbate their financial stresses. Therefore, this energy subsidy that they are offering must be tied to renewable energy obligations also. Similarly, these kind of data centers exclusively are being created by big tech companies. Big tech companies include Amazon, Google, Microsoft, Meta, etc. Now, these companies are creating data centers from themselves. So on one hand, the access of these data won't be available to smaller companies. And if smaller Indian companies, they themselves start investing in a separate data center, this would mean that the market that is available to them won't be the big tech companies, which are major procurers of these data. So this is another problem, that it increases your dependence on big tech companies, which is already a big no in countries like US. So these are the policy challenges and concerns. Now, the best part of our today's discussion is how it improves your strategic obligation or how it improves your strategic position in the entire world. Let us discuss this. First is that you need to ensure that the kind of data centers is going to invest, you provide these data center with a tag of critical infrastructure. We already provide critical infrastructure tag to electricity, to important telecom networks, to ports, airports, etc. So once we provide the infrastructure sector recognition to them, the loans can be available to these from Indian financial institutions at a lesser interest rate. So it would reduce the cost of doing business in India. Similarly, we also need to set a policy. This policy need to ensure that the kind of AI computation that we are doing is going to be given and provided equitable access to all the kinds of industry, not just big tech, not just small industries. Similarly, we also need to ensure that both public sector companies participate in these kind of investment in close collaboration with private companies. Why? We need to ensure that the infrastructure that is being constructed in India, it is provided for public access, it is provided to startups and not just to big companies. So this would ensure inclusive growth. This would ensure equitable access to resources, which is not the case currently with the big tech control. Similarly, this also increases India's obligations as far as India AI mission is concerned. Now, I told you already in previous sessions also that India AI is a mission where government wants to ensure subsidized access to graphics processing units so as to ensure the technology of AI goes even to the startups and small companies in India. Now, this kind of an investment would add to the India's obligations in India AI mission. Similarly, as I told you initially, earlier the data centers were concentrated in big cities. Now, with this investment, when it is being established in a tier 2 town like Visakhapatnam, it improves the regional imbalance which was existing in India's AI sector and technology development sector. Similarly, this kind of investment also makes a big impact on India's domestic capacity building. I told you, once a big company invests in India, it creates a positive impact on ecosystem. So other competitors, be it smaller competitors, would also want to invest in the data centers themselves, and this would create equitable access to services at a fraction of cost that will be much impactful as far as India's economy is concerned. Understood? So this was all for our today's discussion. Now, before we move to practice questions, which are 3 PYQs, let me tell you something. Now, we are right now offering batches for P2I foundation courses for students who are looking to give exams in 2027 or in 2028. Now, right now, in October, just before Diwali, right now is your best option to take a course. Why? You get adequate amount of time, more than 1.5 years of time to prepare for your exam, in case if you're looking to give exams in 2027, and you get all the benefits that are available to students already enrolled in StudyIQ IAS. You get live classes, mock tests, mentorship, residential program, etc. Everything is available. Now, one thing you have to keep in mind before taking the admission is that if you apply the code ATS Live, you're going to get maximum discounts, and the final amount that you're going to pay for a 2027 course would be 18,999. Similarly, for 2028 courses, you are going to pay 32,999, but these rates you'll get only when you apply the code ATS Live, right? So please remember this. Now let us try to solve this question which has appeared in the prelims examination. With reference to foreign direct investment in India, which one of the following statement is considered as a major characteristic? Now you'll have to identify a statement which is right in all the circumstances. Now, it is the investment through capital instrument essentially in a listed company. Does it mean that only when you invest in listed company it makes it FDI? No. I told you, even if you invest 100 rupees in an unlisted company, if it has been invested by a non-resident entity, that will be called as FDI. So is it right in all circumstances? No. It is the investment in which involves debt servicing. Is it right? No. I told you, the foreign direct investment is non-debt servicing instrument. It is an investment made by a foreign institutional investor in government security. Is government security a capital instrument? No, it is a debt instrument. So last is incorrect. So we have successfully eliminated all the option. So it is largely a non-debt creating capital flow is the right answer to your FDI question. Now let us consider this question. Out of these four, which of them can be included in foreign direct investment? Now see the fourth option. Non-resident external deposits, I told you, it is a part of external commercial borrowing. So not a foreign direct investment. Remove fourth option, you get B and A. Now first, foreign currency convertible bond is an example of FDI. Foreign institutional investment with certain condition. What is this condition? More than 10% of investment in paid up equity capital. So second is also right. Global depository receipt, American depository receipts, part of FDI. So 1, 2, 3 is your right answer. Option A is the right answer. Now, which one of the following constitutes capital account? Now I told you balance of payment includes both capital and current account. So all two-way transactions which increases your debt or it increases your liability is an example of capital account transaction. So foreign loans, capital account transaction; foreign direct investment, capital account transaction; private remittances, it is a one-way transaction, not a two-way transaction, part of current account; portfolio investment, part of capital account. So 1, 2 and 4 is the right answer. Therefore, option B is your right answer. Understood? So this is why we have solved 3 questions in our today's discussion. And if you want to download the notes, they will be made available on this particular Telegram channel. If you have problems in finding it, you can also scan the QR code. So I'll take your permission. Have a very good night and please enjoy your festivals.